President Joe Biden has lost another high-profile endorsement for his 2024 bid. Charlamagne Tha God appeared on The View Wednesday, said he would not endorse Joe Biden in 2024. He did endorse Joe Biden in 2020. The View hosts seem to have a hard time accepting that. Let's watch.
You endorsed Joe Biden back in 2020, but this time around you say you're not going to endorse anybody. Charlamagne, now is not the time, in my opinion, to sit this one out.
Yeah. I didn't say that. I never said I was sitting it out.
What you gonna do?
I'm definitely voting in November, but what I like to focus on is issues, not individuals. Like, you know, when
but why not endorse?
Huh?
Why not endorse Biden?
Because if I'm sitting here telling my listeners that, you know, you have somebody out there who is a threat to democracy, you have somebody out there who said they want to, you know, suspend the Constitution to overthrow the results of an election. You saw this person, you know, try to lead an attempted coup of this country. And I'm telling people that this guy is a threat to democracy. Have you ever read Project 25? Mm-hmm. There's only 2 candidates out there. So if I'm saying that about this individual, the choice is clear, right? And I've seen y'all do this on The View before. I saw y'all do this to Killer Mike when he was on The View. Why do y'all need us to say this if we don't feel comfortable saying it?
No, it's not that we need you to say it, but I think other folks need to hear, because, you know, one of the things I'm sorry, jumped you, I'm sorry, but one of the things that we've been talking about is the fact that getting facts out through the media seems to be very difficult.
I feel like I just spewed some facts.
Yeah.
Yes, but we need you to do it on your show.
Well, the reality is I think both candidates are trash. So but I am going to vote in November, and I'm going to vote my best interest, and I'm going to vote who I think, you know, can preserve democracy. So if I think both candidates are trash and I don't feel like, you know, endorsing one, would you rather me endorse an individual or endorse the fact that, hey, we need to go out here and protect democracy?
Charlamagne goes on to call Republicans crooks, Democrats cowards, and said the couch is voter apathy. He says voter apathy seems to be winning. Yeah, no argument there. I think that Charlamagne Tha God is completely right to say that, like most Americans, both of these options are unsatisfactory. I think Alyssa Farah is right to bring up this double hater language. That term got coined because there's so many people who feel that way and needed to get a name. And the sort of frantic panic of the rest of the host trying to get him to fall in line is really endemic of what a lot of, frankly, third-party voters have been experiencing for a long time. That line in particular, that you are sitting this one out if you criticize the major 2-party candidates or the one that's more to the left, is such a kind of form of gaslighting. Like, no, I vote, I participate politically, I just choose to vote for and endorse candidates that actually reflect my beliefs. And if Joe Biden wants to be that candidate, then he's going to have to reflect my beliefs.
Right, because he clearly wasn't saying from his perspective that he thinks they're equally bad. He was, when he talked about attacks on democracy in the election, et cetera, he was clearly signaling that he thinks Trump is worse, but that what I gather is Biden has not met his minimal acceptance standard. Yes. And so, and there are other candidates in the race, you know, for people on the left, there are other people to choose from.
Yes, although certainly. I think he plans to vote for Biden, which is my criticism of Charlamagne Tha God, is that I think he's not going far enough. What he's doing that's helpful.
If you are voting for Biden, but you're not going to do an endorsement, that seems
just
like a very silly
difference. Say I'm voting for Biden. Like, at a certain point, it seems like sophistry. Like, what face are you trying to save here? If you don't like Biden, but you're going to vote for him, then you are succumbing to this vote blue no matter who, and just own that you think it's important to save the democracy and do that.
Right.
But I think what would be actually more powerful and more interesting is if he truly resisted vote blue no matter who, because frankly, the only way, in my view, democracy is going to get saved is if you force the Democrats to actually be democratic and force them to actually uphold their stated values in order to earn those votes. You don't get anything out of saying months and years before an election cycle that no matter what Joe Biden or insert generic Democrat is going to do, you're going to vote for them no matter what. That is a guaranteed formula to make sure your vote is never earned. And when people say, no, I'm withholding my vote, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden as a knee-jerk reflection, what they're often told is you're being apathetic or you want Donald Trump to win. No, I am giving you as a voter an opportunity to court me, to get my vote, but it requires you to actually change your policies that are so anathema to what most Americans want. Change on Gaza, do something about the economy, fulfill your promises to black voters, whatever it is, to change, and then you have an opportunity to actually get those votes. But asking voters to say that they're going to commit to voting down for a party, no matter what they say or do, is exactly how you get a Democratic Party that drifts to the right, courting Republican voters whose votes aren't considered to be entitled, given to the Democrats. So they keep courting those people. They keep shifting more and more to the right. And meanwhile, you have an entire base who's standing there with their arms in the air saying, well, what am I, chopped liver? You just have this expectation that I'm going to fall in line. And that's why the most consistent Democratic voters are the most underserved voters in America, namely black voters who vote in line with the Democratic Party at greater numbers and more consistency than any other group in America. Is there a relationship between the promises that are broken to black Americans and the fact that they will vote for Democrats no matter what? I would argue, yes, there is.
Yeah, I don't know that most Republicans feel like the Democratic Party is actually trying to get their votes.
You heard Joe Biden. He put ads out saying Nikki Haley voters come to me. Has he put an ad out saying
policies that they support? The Democratic Party has moved
his border
far
policy?
to the left.
His
over
border
time.
policy?
Overall, if you go on most issues, maybe not the border. If you go on most issues, the Democratic Party
has moved
way more
of
progressive
policies.
over time.
In what way? It's been
That's
worse
what
on
charts.
unions.
Look at charts.
On what, cultural policy? That's not policy. That's just vibes. Oh, you hang a rainbow
on
flag out
everything.
outside the White House? What's that actually doing for poor and working class gay
Green
people
New
in this
Deal,
country?
et cetera.
What? Where's there a Green New Deal? Did Joe Biden pass a Green New Deal?
They all talk in support of it.
Where? When? When did they vote in support of it? When did they actually act and push it? When did you see a single Biden ad talking about how important it is for him to pass a Green New Deal? Never. None.
He talked about the Green New Deal all the
Joe
time.
Biden, when he was campaigning. The Joe Biden agenda has been the Joe Manchin agenda, and they're frankly proud of it.
Republicans can take comfort in that the Democrats don't accomplish all of the lofty societal transformations that they promised.
Lofty societal transformations. An overwhelming majority of Americans want there to be a wealth tax. This is not a partisan issue. The overwhelming majority of Americans want there to be universal health care. This is not a fringe leftist issue. I just did a radar running down.
Issue.
When 70% of Americans
Mass
support
confiscation
something,
of wealth from other people is
I'm not doing this with you. When 70% of
I don't want to do it. More rising after this. Goodbye. Go.
When 70% of Americans support a policy, it's not fringe. And you can't just sit there and say it's fringe because you personally don't like it, Robby. 70% of Americans support the policy. So my point is this.
70% of Americans
Joe
support what?
Biden, universal health care.
Depending on asked, I'm sure most Americans think that health care should be provided to people. How we actually pay for that and what the policy. Ask them how much of them want Obamacare or socialized medicine, then they get
We've been
very little
talking
support.
about billions of dollars going out the door for Israel for weeks. It's something that you don't agree with, but at no point did you say, how can we pay for that? Not once.
What do you? I don't.
We've
want
been talking about,
I don't want to
but you haven't
to
questioned
Israel.
how we're going to pay for it. You say we shouldn't pay for it, but there's an expectation that when it comes to military spending, of course we can pay for it. The second
I don't think we can pay for it. No, we're running up. No, we cannot afford to do the military spending we're doing.
About delivering for the health and welfare of the American people. That phrase comes up again.
That's not true at all. I don't think
nowhere.
we can afford. That's just absolutely misrepresenting my position. I do not think we can afford the military
Check
spending
the
we're
notes.
doing at all.
I would bet every dollar in my bank account that you haven't said, how are we going to pay for that one time in a year?
How are we going to pay for it? We
about,
can't pay for it, and we should. I don't want to raise
and yet
taxes
you've
to
not
pay
said
for the
that.
military spending.
You haven't said, how are we going to pay for it? Not a single time.
I mean, you're right. I've been preoccupied with, yes, we should not pay for it, but we also can't afford to do it, and
well, how
the
about
military
you
is
stick
running
to
up our
we
deficit.
should not pay for Medicare for all? Stick with that then. Sit here and stand by the notion that you think that we should not pay for Medicare for all. But most Americans, America, the country, our government should not pay for Medicare for all. That seems to be your stance as you framed it with respect to a bunch of other expenditures.
Right.
But
I don't want the massive bloat that we have in our education and health system and other to impact whether people can get care, like in other countries that have those arrangements where people wait in lines for care for weeks and months and years.
Okay.
In fact, coming to America to get the care they can't get in Canada under the system you profess.
Yes, I wish we had healthcare like Canada. I wish we had healthcare like Israel.
Canadians wish they had healthcare like America. But
I wish we had healthcare like Israel, where people don't have to die in the street or have to get extremely expensive emergency care that average Americans have to pay for anyway because they can't get preventative treatment. I think that we're the richest country in the history of the world. And there's a relationship between the visceral pushback that you get when you start bringing up Medicare for all and a wealth tax, and how popular they are, and how much
cost the American government more than the military, but the military is also bankrupting us. I agree,
and
I would
how much
lop it in half overnight. But you can't just end foreign military spending or even domestic military spending would not bring our budget in line. It's the entitlement system that is causing us ruinous debt that we will pass on to our children and grandchildren.
And how much goes into preventing those perspectives from being reflected on a program like The View, and where someone like Charlamagne comes on and says, well, God forbid my vote be sought because I want these policies. Even if you don't, the point is that overwhelming majorities of Americans want things that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party aren't willing to offer them. And if citizens continue to stand by their morals and their values the way that Charlamagne is sort of hinting at here and say these are the conditions of my vote, we would perhaps see very different political priorities starting to emerge during a campaign season instead of the same old that is causing all of the disaffected voters that we cover routinely on this show.
Tomorrow on Rising, we'll be handing the baton off to the Fridays team. You won't want to miss that edition of the show.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. For those of you who prefer to listen while you're on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
See ya.
Take care.